It will be Honorable Franz Castro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I also thank the Meta for coming here after 3 notices. Thank you. I have some specific personal question about how the Meta is detecting community standards violation, or what you call violation of community standards. When you look at the when you look at your platform, we have here several. When you report like a content, you will find here several violations like scam, fraud or impersonation, unauthorized political ad, adult content, selling or promoting restricted items, violence, hate or exploitation, bullying or unwanted content, intellectual property, suicide or self-harm, false information, problem involving 18-year-old or someone under 18 years old. Well, I was a victim of your platform, where my official Facebook account were taken down by your platform due to it said there impersonation. So I cannot understand why do you take down an account due to impersonation. So how does it happen? So how you determine that really is this account is impersonated? Because this account was reported to COMELEC as my official election account for my daily activities during election.
Thank you, Madam Congressman. Mr. Chair, if I may. Madam Congresswoman, thank you for your question. Certainly impersonation is a violation of our community standards. And there, I can say that I don't know the specifics of your case, but let me talk about a little bit about how we try to deal with issues of impersonation, right? First of all, there can be a number of different reasons that an account might be taken down, right? There can be repeated violations of our community standards, or there can be very severe violations of our community standards. But other times, it can be because someone was able to, unfortunately, gain access to your account. Not your account, but anyone's account, right? It can happen that unauthorized access can take place, right? In those cases, they may, once a hacker has gained access to an account, then, sometimes what we see is they go and delete the account, or then they take over that account to use it for their own purposes. And what we do in those cases is we work with the rightful account holder to retake control of their account, right? So we ask for credentials. It could be a government ID. It could be various email addresses or other identifying information that were used with that account in order to regain control of it. I think one thing we've seen and that we know is an extremely effective guard against having accounts taken over by hackers is two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication is really the first line of defense that any user on Facebook, including members of Congress, have against their accounts being taken over. If you have two-factor authentication on, anytime someone would seek to make changes to your account, it would ping you to make sure that you're the right person and you're authorizing those changes. I would urge everyone to make sure they have two-factor turned on their account. I think it's also worth noting that, for government officials, for politicians who are engaged in an election cycle, we have specific channels where we can work together. We have our Meta Support Pro channel that you can access and that we're happy to work with you to make sure you have access to, so that if you have specific issues with your account, other members of Congress, other people running for election can access those channels. I think it's also worth noting, and I didn't really mention this in my opening comments, but I think I should, that that there are a number of different statutory agencies that have specific channels with Meta where they can report community standards violations, account hacks, and any other issues that the government is experiencing with Meta's platforms and our services. In fact, there are 11 different government agencies that have direct channels to us. And so those are other channels that can certainly be utilized in cases where members of Congress experience those types of actions. And I would just also say, it does also happen from time to time that we make mistakes. That is also something that happens, and we're sorry for when that happens. We know it's a really poor experience. We don't want that to happen. We take those instances very seriously. We do everything we can to try to minimize them. Okay. And so that's also just something that can happen sometimes.
So when my account was took down, we complained to we write to the Meta about my account, and then why is it that you are taking down specific account without explanation or without any justification to the subscriber? Like, for example, just take the account and that's it. So no explanation at all. So you will just explain if we will write to you on what happened to the account. So there's no, is there a like for example, due process in place in your platform?
Thank you for the question, Congressman, Mr. Chair, if I may. Madam Congresswoman, again, I'm not familiar with the specifics of your case, but I, again, can talk in general. Users should receive notifications if actions have been taken against their account. That is certainly part of the due process that we have in place, and users have a right of appeal. And in fact, when we see mistakes happen and users appeal those actions, the content in question, if it was a community standards violation, may often be restored. In some cases, the account would be restored. I do just want to highlight, in the specific case of hostile takeover of accounts, or what Meta believes may be a hostile takeover of an account, that can be a more complex process for very good reason. We want to make sure that we are not providing access to the account of someone who shouldn't have it. And so, Madam Congresswoman, I would just emphasize again that if you or another member of Congress is having any types of these issues, we can certainly provide you access to our Meta Support Pro and other channels so that we can solve these problems together.
Mr. Chair, may I ask also that, are you familiar with troll armies? Troll armies, or mass reporting of an account so that it could be taken down for any other reasons. Are you familiar with that? Because I'm suspecting that my personal account was a victim of that scheme by army trolls, or by a group who would like to take down my account. Because as I can see here in your process of checking the misinformation and disinformation, it would be, if it is mass reported, it goes to your AI, and then after that, human checking, right? Right? In your graph of how to determine the disinformation or violation of your community standards. So, so my question is, are you familiar with that scheme?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Madam Congresswoman, coordinated mass reporting absolutely violates our policies. We have seen that type of behavior before by And certainly, if we detect that type of behavior, then we would seek to make sure that any decisions that are made about accounts are the correct ones. And then we would also try to go after the people who are engaged in the coordinated mass reporting, because that clearly does violate our policies. And that's the type of abusive network that we would seek to prohibit from utilizing our platforms.
Another question, Mr. Chair, is about the inaction of the Meta on the AI-generated images abused. I was also a victim of that when I hold a gun. They are using the AI-generated, but still in the platform. But the Meta is not doing anything about that, and many progressive organizations and individuals are victims of that, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, sorry. So the question.
So how do you detect, or why are you not taking down AI-generated images that you think are not or inappropriate or not true or misinformation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Madam Congresswoman, and for the committee, I think I would start from the place of our view of misinformation is that whether or not it's AI generated or not, it would be misinformation, right? And so I think first and foremost, what I would say and emphasize is that our misinformation policies apply to content that is AI generated and is not AI generated. Now, taking a larger look at AI generated content, okay. There's a few different pieces to this, right? First and foremost, if people use meta AI in our own products to generate, for generative AI imagery or the like, we have the ability to detect that, right? And it'll come with a watermark, basically, and therefore a label and be recognizable as a generated AI image. Now, if people are using other tools, right, then basically it's harder to detect what is generative AI and what is not. This is an area of very significant investment for Meta right now. We're working very hard on ways to detect what is generative AI and what is not. I think that part of the issue that we have here, and this is one where what we need is collective action. At the moment, there's no agreed upon industry standard for watermarking, or for how platforms like ours should go about detecting the difference between generative AI and non-generative AI content. And so that's an area where we really need more focused industry collaboration, and certainly we are trying to drive that. For Meta, we believe it's very important for that type of collaboration to happen between industry, civil society, and governments. And I think the last thing I would really talk about when it comes to generative AI imagery or other content is really distinguishing between paid content and non-paid content, right? If you are, just generally speaking, at Meta, we take a much more stringent approach to moderating paid content, right? Because obviously, we're taking money for it. We believe we have responsibility that's even greater, and the distribution would be increased, right? And so, in the context of anything that is, again, taking out the generative AI component of it, any type of content that is paid for, that is political in nature, that talks about a campaign, or a politician, or a social issue, right, is subject to our policies on political candidates and social issue paid advertising, right? And according to those policies, you would be required to disclose who is paying for the ad and sponsoring the content. You would also have to go through an authorization process, which would include, in most cases, providing a government ID.
Okay,
And you would
I'll
have to
cut
be,
you on that.
if
So
I could
how-
just finish one last
Yeah,
point,
okay.
you'd have to be located in Philippines, right? If you want to run a social issue or political ad, you'd have to be located in Philippines, right? And so there's a series of steps that you have to take to cross that threshold in order to be able to run those types of ads. And then in addition to it, if it is AI generated, you'd be required to disclose that it is an AI generated paid piece of content. Thank you.
So, really, it's very hard to determine because the name of the account is alias, or the name of account is just like a, like for example, Makabayan. The account is using our political organization. That account names Makabayan, is using our political organization, but it has this what I saw an AI generated images of mine with guns, with the rebels, etc. I will give you the images later so that you can see.
Mr. Chair, if I, thank you, Madam Congresswoman, and I know my colleague also wants to add on to this.
Mr. Chair, with your indulgence, Madam Congresswoman, it's my understanding that you reported this content, this image, to Kamalek,
Yeah.
and we have removed it.
Yeah.
I would like to also state respectfully for the record that we're not doing nothing on harmful generative AI. In fact, as recently as, it was either yesterday or the day before, I personally worked directly with PAOK to remove a harmful piece of generative AI that was promoting investment scams. And what happens when something like that gets reported, it's not just that piece of content that comes down. That informs our ability to enforce across the platforms and across other accounts. So although PAOK reported one specific URL, many, many others came down as a result of that report. So while I understand, with respect, how painful and frustrating it must be to be a victim of harmful generative AI, please don't think we're doing nothing. But we are not perfect yet, but we always strive to be better. We strive to be better by signal sharing and trend sharing with Filipino law enforcement, legislative, NGOs, civil society, etc. So thank you.
Yeah.